Once upon a time, in a famous story, a girl named Alice got very curious about a little white rabbit who passed by. She followed him and soon found herself falling down a very deep hole into a strange place called Wonderland.
Wait!
I'm late! I'm late!
Hey, wait!
I'm too late!
Oh, hello. You have seemed to catch my evolutionarily perfected senses off guard this time. As you may see, I was taking my bath. Dry clean only. You seem to seek my illimitable sapience. For this, I scoff at you. Hey. But as this regales me, and I have nothing left to regurgitate on, I will apportion my cognizance on LSD, its history, effects on your overdeveloped cerebral tissue, and the future of LSD. As you are an imbecilic ape, I must first discuss exactly what LSD is and some of the history behind it. LSD, or lysergic acid diethylamide, also known as acid, is a psychedelic drug known for its psychological effects. This may include altered awareness of the surroundings, perceptions, and feelings. It is used mainly as a recreational drug and for spiritual reasons. LSD is typically either swallowed or held under the tongue. It is often sold on blotter paper, a sugar cube, or gelatin.
But all drugs.
Oh shit. I call them groovy bears.
Essentially, LSD is a derivative of ergot. Ergot is a fungus that frequently grows on rye and wheat. The neurotrophic activities of the ergot alkaloids may also cause hallucinations and attendant irrational behavior, convulsions, and even death. Other symptoms include strong uterine contractions, nausea, seizures, high fever, vomiting, loss of muscle strength and unconsciousness. Since the Middle Ages, controlled doses of ergot were used to induce abortions and to stop maternal bleeding after childbirth. If you possess even the slightest knowledge of history, you may recall the Salem witch trials, which were a series of hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. This also resulted in the execution of 20 people. New evidence suggests the subjects being victim to ergot poisoning and tripping mad balls, as a result of rye bread being contaminated with ergot. Naturally, seeing the potential of ergot, a pharmaceutical company decided to look into these potential benefits. In Switzerland, chemist Albert Hofmann was tasked with isolating the compounds and synthesizing a derivative, where the side effect wasn't death. Since 1938, Hofmann had tried a few variations of the drug, with few noticeable results. Except for one variation, lysergic acid diethylamide 25 or LSD 25, made his test mice unexplainably excited, probably because they were having the trip of their life. Research was then abandoned, yet Hofmann kept researching the compound, until he discovered its psychedelic properties in 1943. Years later, LSD was introduced as a commercial medication under the trade name Delazid for various psychiatric uses in 1947. In the 1950s, officials at the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, thought the drug might be useful for mind control and chemical warfare and tested the drug on young servicemen and students, and others without their knowledge. The subsequent recreational use by psychologists, and youth culture in the Western world as part of 1960s counterculture resulted in its prohibition. Damn hipsters ruin everything. It was prominently used by many musicians and people who required more creative thinking, such as the Beatles.
Have you taken LSD?
About 4 times.
And Steve Jobs. Now that we covered some history, I shall now briefly cover the synthesis of LSD. LSD is an ergoline derivative. It is commonly synthesized by reacting diethylamine with an activated form of lysergic acid. Activating reagents include phosphoryl chloride and peptide coupling reagents. Lysergic acid is made by alkaline hydrolysis of lysogametes like ergotamine. a substance usually derived from the ergot fungus on agar plate, or, theoretically possible, but impractical and uncommon, from ergene, lysergic acid amide, LSA, extracted from morning glory seeds. Lysergic acid can also be produced synthetically, eliminating the need for ergotamines. It is also important to know the dosage of this substance, to have a perspective of just how potent it is. A single dose of LSD may be between 40 and 500 micrograms, an amount roughly equal to 1/10 the mass of a grain of sand. Threshold effects can be felt with as little as 25 micrograms of LSD. Dosages of LSD are measured in micrograms, or millionths of a gram. By comparison, dosages of most drugs, both recreational and medicinal, are measured in milligrams, or thousandths of a gram. Finally, the part all you enlarged cerebral frogs have been waiting for. Exactly how LSD affects the brain. However, it should be noted that nobody is exactly sure how LSD affects the brain. There are a few speculations as to how it does. The primary part of the brain that is believed to set forth the chain reaction of senses by this substance, is the thalamus. The thalamus is often described as a relay station. This is because almost all sensory information, with the exception of smell, that proceeds to the cortex first stops in the thalamus before being sent on to its destination. The thalamus is subdivided into a number of nuclei that possess functional specializations for dealing with particular types of information. Sensory information thus travels to the thalamus and is routed to a nucleus tailored to dealing with that type of sensory data. Then, the information is sent from that nucleus to the appropriate area in the cortex where it is further processed. For example, visual information from your retina travels to the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus, which is specialized to handle visual information, before being sent on to the primary visual cortex, the main area for visual processing in the brain. A similar pathway through the thalamus can be delineated for all sensory information except smell. In fact, the majority of all of the signals, not just sensory, that pass to the cortex first pass through the thalamus. Thus, the thalamus has a major role as a gatekeeper for information on its way to the cortex, making sure that the information gets sent to the right place. However, to consider the thalamus as just a gatekeeper or relay station is selling this structure a bit short. A significant portion of the incoming fibers to the thalamus come not from sensory systems, but from the cortex itself. There are many connections to the thalamus that are involved in taking information from the cortex, modulating it, and then sending it back to the cortex. This means that the thalamus is an important part of cortical processing in general, and more than just a brief stop for signals on their way to the cortex. With this in mind, it shouldn't be that surprising that the thalamus is involved in complex brain processes like sleep and wakefulness. It even is thought to play a crucial role in maintaining consciousness. So, far from just a relay station, the thalamus is an integral area involved in higher-order brain processing of various types. According to Andrew Sooo, a Yale psychiatrist and one of the few US-based psychedelic drug researchers, when LSD takes over the thalamus, the function of the thalamus is dampened down, allowing for the unfiltered and unprioritized flow of information from different neurons and parts of the brain, is what possibly allows for the enhancement and connection of the senses. Another thing worth mentioning is that LSD acts as non-selective serotonin receptor agonist. For those humans whom are not scientifically literate, this means that LSD is very similar to serotonin on a molecular level, and bonds better to the serotonin receptors. LSD has a higher affinity for 5-HT receptors than serotonin. Thus the presence of LSD prevents serotonin from sending neural messages in the brain. Once the LSD molecule is bound to the receptor proteins, the message is not carried any further. Instead, the impulse is redirected to the older parts of the brain, where the bloodstream then takes it to the sense-interpretive centers and the motor areas. Research has found increased global connectivity in many higher-level regions of the brain in people under the influence of the drug. Those brain regions showing increased global connectivity overlapped significantly with parts of the brain where the receptors known to respond to serotonin are found, such as frontoparietal cortex, a brain region associated with self-consciousness. In particular, it was observed increased connection between this portion of the brain and sensory areas, which are in charge of receiving information about the world around us and conveying it for further processing to other brain areas. Now I understand. For inexperienced larvae such as yourselves, the talk of brain connectivity, self-consciousness, and ego deprivation may be a bit confusing. For that reason, I will now briefly describe the symptoms. Mental and physical. The physical effects include dilated pupils, higher body temperature and sweating, nausea and loss of appetite, increased blood sugar, heart rate and blood pressure, sleeplessness, dry mouth and tremors. The mental effects include colors becoming more vivid and textured, synesthesia, basically the meshing of sound and visuals in the brain, altered senses of touch and perception, and most notably, ego death. It's when the boundary between self and not self is completely lost. LSD is also particularly dangerous for people with schizophrenia, since it may cause bad trips and long-term side effects, such as flashbacks. Note: the reason LSD cannot be addictive is due to the body building up tolerance to it immediately. So for the drug to be effective again, the body needs at least a week. It is also very hard to overdose, as one would need 780 standard doses to do so. The real danger is people taking another drug under the assumption that it's LSD. Now for the implications of LSD in conscious flashbacks such as you. Aside from recreation use, LSD has been used in medicine and psychology, to better understand how serotonin works, and understanding human consciousness. LSD has also been found to eliminate cluster headache, which are rare and extremely painful headaches. Now I must conclude this extraordinary video. Citations will be in the description. Time for me to count some sheep.
Tell me.
Well, I just couldn't. I couldn't possibly tell you. It's here. Can't you feel it? This whole room. This. Everything is in color, and I can feel the air. I can see it. I can see all the molecules. I'm part of it. Can't you see it?
I'm trying.